Hey, what's going on, you guys? Welcome to the show. If you haven't done so yet, smash that like button and subscribe to the channel. We're also on Spotify as well, so please follow the channel on Spotify. I'm really trying to grow the audience on Spotify. On top of that, if you join up on Spotify, you also get the audio versions of the content on my new channel, which is Beyond the Unknown, which is dedicated to paranormal, unsolved mysteries, and UFO and alien encounters. So it's kind of it's a really cool channel. I'm working on that really hard, and especially right now with there not being a lot of movie news to go around, it's definitely something to check out. So if you follow us on Spotify, you'll get access to both contents on one channel. So it's really cool. Also, at the end of the stream, it'll also be on YouTube podcast as well, and that's within YouTube Music. I also have links down below if you want to buy any of that merchandise from Amazon, as I'm an Amazon affiliate, so that's another way of supporting the channel. Or you can also become a member of the channel or join us over on Patreon, and I appreciate everyone over on Patreon and who's a member of the channel. It definitely means a lot to me, and it helps support the channel nonetheless. So guys, today is Batman Day, and so I thought, what a better guest to have on Batman Day than the host of Comics League, Jarrod. Now, Jarrod, first of all, thank you for coming on here. I appreciate you joining the show. But how do you pronounce your last name?
It's to the point where whatever comes out, it's fine. But it's like the Italian pronunciation is probably like Liuzzi.
Liuzzi.
Yeah. But I'm for like 27 years, for 27 years, geez, everyone's been like mispronouncing it, so I'm used to it at this point. It's all good.
Well, how do you pronounce it?
Liuzzi.
Liuzzi, okay.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't know if it was like Louisi, and I was like, no, that's not right, dude.
Either way, I actually feel a lot of people pronounce it that way. So it's
really?
all good. Yeah.
So, Jared, tell me, today's Batman Day, and if you haven't done so yet, check out Comics League. It's over on YouTube. Is the show on any other platform besides YouTube?
It's on Spotify, as a matter of fact. My main podcast, Under Two Capes, I do on. I upload the audio to Spotify whenever it's out, and then also on Twitch.
And on Twitch as well, yeah. And we're also live on Twitch on both ends, on my channel and on Jared's channel as well. So definitely follow us on Twitch as well. For a while, especially during the pandemic, I used to do a lot of like watch parties on Twitch, and like those brought in a ton of views. And then once the COVID went away, everybody was like, "Yeah, I don't care."
Yeah, I know.
To a degree, you know. If you keep it up, then it works out pretty well. Plus, I do a lot of gaming streams on there as well. So, so Jared, man, what's going on?
Nothing, just enjoying the Dark Knight Day. Just
right.
Chilling out.
I got my favorite coffee mug right here, just for today. But I mean, look, when it comes to comic book characters, I think that Batman is probably, is probably one of the most popular characters out there. Your top ones are, obviously Batman, Spider-Man. Let me turn that. Hold on.
In terms of DC characters, he is their number one, like, golden goose.
Yes. I mean, Superman is very, very popular, but he's not as big as Batman.
No.
And for me, it's always, I think one of the biggest draws for Batman for me was always that he's a human. He's a human being who's, who's able to exist among these gods and hold his own and
kick their ass. Exactly.
Kick their ass, know their weaknesses, but also he's somebody that they turn to because, of his intelligence, of his, what do you call it? He's their, what's the word? Not statistician, but he's their tactical expert. You know what I mean? When it goes into any battle. So there's a lot of things that he has that they don't have. And so that's what makes him so good. And not only that, but, he has these scars, these, traumatic events of his life that kind of shaped him. And so I think a lot of people can really just relate to his character. And like I said, he's a human being. So every time I see him in the comics, I'm like, that's a guy. That's a dude who pushes his body and his mind to the limit, no matter what he has to do to win, And
he's out there punching Darkseid in the face.
Yeah, I know, right? I was wondering too, like, do you think if we would have got like a continuation of Zack's story, do you think that Batman would have gotten the opportunity to punch Darkseid or attack him? I don't know.
Based upon what Zack was inspired by, it would probably be shooting him with the time gun. But I still believe at some point we will get some type of continuation. But I was reading this fantastic thing on Grant Morrison's Batman, and it revisits that scene from the end of Final Crisis where he shoots him with the gun, except this time it adds dialogue. So Batman's like, I have a moral, like, issue using guns, but for you, Darkseid, I'll make a once-in-a-lifetime exception. Boom.
So what do you think about that too? Because that's another big, kind of point of controversy is his no-kill rule. And, we saw in BVS, he killed like 100 dudes. I mean, obviously he had his reasons that some people just didn't really understand. But what do you think about Batman's rule of no killing? And, should it always be followed no matter what?
Well, for one thing, everyone's forgetting that every movie Batman has killed someone. Every single one. Right. If you look at him, Bale drove his Batmobile into a truck that pancaked into an overpass. I'm like, that dude's dead. But in terms of like the kill rule, I get why it exists. The issue I have with it is that, and again, I get why he doesn't like kill the Joker because in the manner that the Joker makes DC too much money, so they're not going to kill him off. But realistically, he should just kill the Joker. At least the Joker.
If he's going to kill anyone,
it's like Jason Todd makes a fantastic argument. He's like, I'm not saying kill Harvey or Penguin or anyone else. Just kill him.
Yeah,
if he's really that like on the knife's edge, like if I kill one person, I'll kill everyone. Maybe you shouldn't be a superhero.
Exactly right. But there was people took issue with the fact that he was openly, as opposed to kind of in the other films, he obviously, like in Batman 89, Batman Returns, the Nolan trilogy, he killed people, but it was kind of off camera. Not really off camera, like they wouldn't show, like Zack was the first one to show him actually kill bad guys, like, physically.
And
car blow up in front of you.
I had someone, I was on Nerd at Newsstand a little while ago debating the Snyderverse, as a matter of fact, and one of the points she said, she straight up confronted me and she goes, "Are you okay having a murdering Batman?" And I'm like, yeah, if it serves the story, it's called a character arc.
Well, and that's the thing too, is that I think when it comes to, like Zack's Batman, right?
Mm-hmm.
The way Zack was telling his story, he didn't sugarcoat anything. He wasn't spoon feeding the fans.
No.
When you watch some of these shows, even in Disney Star Wars, they're spoon feeding fans. Marvel spoon feeding fans, and so then what does that create? It creates a dumb fan, a fan that has to be told everything. And so, there's a scene in BVS where Alfred confronts Batman, and he goes, "New rules." He goes, We're criminals, Alfred. We've always been criminals.
Straight from Dark Knight Returns, by the way.
Nothing's different." He goes, "Oh, everything's changed, right?" But and in that scene alone, it's he's telling you that Batman has changed, that Batman has gone down a different path now, and he's gone off his regular path. And the fact that Zack did not spoon feed that to every fucking viewer, it made them just completely turn on the fact that Batman was killing these villains and brutally killing them, is because it's like, dude, he's killing them because he's reached a point now where he doesn't see, like he's gone off his path. He's dealing with a guy who can destroy the entire world. He's gonna stop at nothing to make sure he gets what he needs to destroy Superman.
Well, also, you're dealing with a Batman that just lost his Robin, and when Batman lost Robin in the comics, he went full on brutal, to the point where that's when Tim Drake came in to become Batman. So
right.
This is why I tell people, Zack does not get enough credit for how comic accurate he put stuff in, or like these situations he put these characters in, or stuff that they have dealt with 100% in the books all the time.
Mm-hmm. And that was the whole thing, is that, he's telling you the entire time during the story that Batman is essentially like reeling down this dark path. I mean, he even tells Alfred before he goes and confronts Superman. He tells him, about the Waynes. He goes, "We were hunters," and he goes, he even tells him, "This is my legacy." Like he's convinced, like he's fully convinced himself that this is what he was born to do. Like he has to do this in order to save humanity. And in a lot of ways, Batman is the villain in BVS.
No one in that movie defends him.
Nobody defends him. Not even Alfred.
Not even Alfred. Alfred's even like, "You're going a little too far with the anti-Superman stuff, dude."
Yeah, exactly. And then, I don't have it anymore. I used to have for some reason, I had the entire scene of when, it's my favorite scene in the movie too. There's a lot of them, but
yes,
this one was my absolute favorite scene. Was the scene where Alfred confronts him, and they're down in the Batcave, and Bruce tells him, we have to take that with an absolute certainty.
Yeah.
And I just love that scene, because again, he's telling you exactly where his mindset is at and why he's doing what he's doing. He was there at the Black Zero event. He was there watching all these people die around him, and he could do nothing to stop him. And so, I think that when regular fans, or I didn't say regular fans, I think that when fans watch something like that, there is no like, somehow it didn't hit this compassionate level where you have to realize, like, hey, he's a human being. If you were in that same situation, that would be traumatizing to, the nth degree. You know what I mean? Like that's a horrible thing to experience. And not to mention, he had lost Robin. I don't know how long ago that was that he had lost him. it was a culmination of events that kind of led him to where he's at in BVS, and I think I love it. I absolutely love what they did with his
100%.
character.
I got it. And here's the thing, though, when you, I think it's more of the fan. It's more of, it's not necessarily the fans didn't understand it, because I've dealt with people that 100% like Dawson, like you guys, who understand the whole concept. It's just the people that are stuck in like the older, like Christopher Reeve era DC and think that's the only type that works. Because here's the thing, I've shown that to people. I've shown BVS and like Zack's movies to my parents, who are in no way like this, and they 100% understood the entire thing. And really what it is, it's just people that don't like Zack's movies. And I'm like, that's fine, but don't.
No, and I think that when it comes to that, when people say, "Oh, well, Zack doesn't understand comics, Zack doesn't understand the characters," I think what it is that, people don't like to have, people don't like to be challenged, and I think he was challenging the narrative that that has been set for Superman. I mean, you look at Superman Returns. That's a continuation of the Chris Reeve
didn't do well.
Superman. It didn't do well. I thought, obviously, I think everyone felt that the actor who played him, he's escaped my name, or escaped
Brandon Routh.
Brandon Routh did an outstanding job.
He was great.
He was great. I was like, holy shit, he's back.
Actually, the one scene that sold me on Zack doing Superman, it wasn't in Man of Steel. It was actually in BVS. It's when it's the scene when you have like all those commentators talk about Superman's a threat, and the way Zack intersperses that with Superman still saving people. Because what that shows is, here's the thing about Superman: no matter your opinion of him, he doesn't need your approval to save you. He's just going to keep doing it no matter what.
Exactly. Well, and then it's like he's saving these people. And not only that, but it's not like he's just saving a person from getting robbed. No, he's saving people from these big catastrophic, events. The ship, turning over in the ice, the rocket blowing up, and all the whole crew would have died if he hadn't saved them. Different things to, show you that, hey, even though people are criticizing the fuck out of him, he's still doing what he feels is right. What he feels like, hey, I'm just trying to help. And I do think that for a lot of fans, that was very heavy-handed, and they weren't quite ready for that. And it's a shame, because it was fucking beautiful. And now the
movie made close to $1 billion, so
exactly. But it wasn't enough. It made about $950 million. And like, oh, it should have cleared $1 billion. Like, well,
if they had not screwed around with that cut as much as they did, it would have.
Yeah. Well, if they hadn't screwed up with, David Ayer Suicide Squad and Justice League, and instead, and that's the thing too, is that I often wonder what it would have been like if we would have got those films the way they were, and if we never would have gotten the abomination that is Justice League.
Why did you say that name?
The worst part is that it still says directed by Zack Snyder, and I'm like, oh, that hurts.
Oh,
that hurts.
Well, it had to, for a lot of different reasons, but it's wrong in so many ways. But going back to Batman, his character in Batman 89. So like, if we go back to Batman 89,
speaking of Batman who kill people,
oh, I know, but it was fine because he did it in a smooth way, And
I challenged someone on that, and their response was, "Oh yeah, we don't like that either." Really? Because all I hear about is how Michael Keaton's like the greatest Batman ever.
In fact, let's ask everyone who's here right now, who's the best Batman?
And the answer is Batfleck.
And this is not like, definitive. It's just, we'll do Keaton 89. We'll put, not 589, 89. That's the one I'm talking about. Who else is there? Kilmer.
Kilmer was pretty decent.
I thought he was good. Bale. Affleck, and I don't have another option. Sorry, Clooney.
It's good. Well, here's the thing, Andre. I didn't know Clooney played Batman.
You didn't know that?
It's a joke. I like to pretend that those movies don't exist.
I know. It's the same with me with like Alien 3 and Alien Resurrection and all that other bullshit. It's like, to me, it goes Alien, Aliens, and then it just sort of drops off.
Yeah.
There's a few of those, like Terminator. After Terminator 2, the other ones don't exist.
Although I thought Dark Fate.
Oh, God, Genesis? I was like, what the fuck are we doing?
I'm like, what?
The only sequel that had a chance was Salvation, but they fucked that up.
Dope.
But like that one, they had the right idea and they had the right elements. It's just that the execution from Mick G was awful, and it needed to have a bigger payoff. Like the ending, it was just kind of like, oh, that's it. It's over.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, I guess it's gonna be another one apparently. Even though that wasn't a very strong ending, and then that was it. What's funny is that the Halcyon Company, which was the studio that was producing it, they spent so much money on that movie that because it didn't bring in a big enough return, that they went bankrupt.
Oh, wow.
So if you ever watch the movie, it has this funny logo and it says the Halcyon Company, whatever. And that was that was the production company that was behind Terminator Salvation. And they went out of business after that movie because they spent all their money on it and it didn't yield a big enough return. When you got like Christian Bale and all these actors and special, and again, okay, so not to go too far off stream, but again, when it comes to a movie like Terminator Salvation, right? You had special effects that worked because again, you have a darker tone. You have like a muted, not muted, but like a lower saturated color tone, and so the special effects actually worked on it. I was like, hey, this looks really good.
Plus, a good portion of those are practical effects that are augmented by CG. That's when it's used. That's when CG is used well.
What's up, Alejandro? What's up, Adam West? I know I left him off.
That's my co-host lad. That's his favorite Batman.
Oh yeah,
and I go, why?
What's up, RJ? He says the two best Batman are Christian Bale and Robert Pattinson. Oh yeah, I left Pattinson off too. Shit, I actually like him a lot. And then I don't hate any Batmans though.
I
except
hate
for
Bale's
Clooney.
voice.
Oh yeah, yes.
Where is he?
I mean, I get it. I get why he did it, but it was, I don't know, it was a little crazy.
But see, here's the thing: it worked in Begins, but they like destroyed for some reason. I think what they did is that because it was hard on his throat, they decided to do that. Hey, let's do it in post. And I'm like,
yeah,
that's why as the movies go on, the voice gets progressively worse.
Yeah, he's like, oh, it's hard to do this voice. But so where were we? Oh yeah, so Batman 89. Because today is Batman Day. I was a huge fan of Batman 89. Still am. I saw it in the theater when it first came out. That was the first big movie that I went and saw where it just fucking blew my mind. I was like, holy shit, this is out of this fucking world. And at the time, 89. So I was 7 years old when I saw that, and I remember thinking that was just like the biggest movie I'd ever seen in my life. But the biggest superhero fight I'd ever seen in my life that wasn't even matched until much later on was Superman 2 when he went against Zod. Yeah, there it is right there.
Yep.
But the Superman fight in Superman 2, that was the biggest Superman fight I'd ever seen in my life. And
it was pretty good.
It took a long time for me at least. It took a long time for them to kind of recapture that, which I think Zack did a good job of doing that. But
until Zack, I thought Superman was stupid.
A lot of people were not huge fans of the character. They just thought he was flat. They just thought he was kind of lame.
But the thing about Zack is that he cut these characters down to the bone. And what I mean by that is that he got down to what makes these characters to a point where you understood it. And I was like, okay, now I get why Superman is so awesome.
Exactly. And so the thing is that when you got to the Brandon Routh Superman Returns, I think that it sort of lost its way. It sort of lost what Superman represented. Instead, it became, how do I mimic what Chris Reeve did with the character? but it didn't really capture the essence of the character.
No, it
and
didn't.
So then after that, you didn't see the character for a fucking long ass time. So you were like, oh man. And then when you saw him again in Man of Steel, he was deconstructing the character, showing you his flaws, showing you the things that he struggles with, and how, growing up in a world where you're not of this world, you don't fit in properly. But how do you fit in? How do you find your place? And I love that. And then in the midst of finding who you are, here comes fucking General Zod and the Kryptonians from your planet who are coming to find you because they want, the fucking the Codex. Which when it comes to the Flash, it's a whole other story that we'll talk about.
Yeah.
But like seeing all that happen, and then when we saw the first time I saw Zod Superman fight in Metropolis in Man of Steel, I remember like, I don't want to say it was a complete mirroring of the emotion and feeling I felt when I saw Saving Private Ryan for the first time. The first time I saw Saving Private Ryan and you see that Omaha Beach scene, I mean, your jaw dropped. You're just like, you're just like, holy shit, these guys are getting fucking murdered.
And apparently they filmed that all in one take.
Yeah. And so when I saw General Zod versus, Superman and Man of Steel, that was the first time on the big screen where I was just like, holy shit. And I love that Zack was trying to show you the ramifications of what happens when you have two individuals who are this powerful and they fight in a city. Now, and what's funny is that people were saying, well, he should have left the city. Superman would have said, oh, I got to lead him away from the city.
And he did. He kept trying to.
He kept trying to. But I mean, at that point, it's like he just had to show it to you. And at one point, he spins around, he throws Superman. You see him go bam, 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 bam.
The funny part is that
with all these buildings, you're like, fuck.
The funny part is that these same people will like say, wasn't it great in the end of Justice League where Superman punches Darkseid through multiple buildings?
Exactly, right? Oh, but that's animation. That's fine.
That's animation. The city was evacuated. Okay, it still leads to destruction, and I'm pretty sure there were some people still there.
And yes, you forgot to add Kevin Porter. Yes, I did. I only had so many options, so I just started naming off names, and then I ran out of available options to add. You can only add so many of those options. So let's see what's up to Niner for life. Go Niners tomorrow. It's gonna be a good game tomorrow against the Rams. But no, I mean, seeing that battle, you saw the stakes that were there. And, I think that when they say, oh, he didn't have to kill Zod, he absolutely did.
He did.
And what were they going to do with him?
Well, yeah.
There was no kryptonite at the time. So there was nothing to weaken him, to imprison him. He had no choice. He had to either kill him or convince him that he was wrong, and there was no convincing Zod.
And also, Nerd Ed always brought up, well, he could have put his hand over over his eyes, and I'm like, first off, that would compromise his grip. But second off, this movie showed you can't do that when like Feora has his head in the dirt and his heat vision finally turns into that beam. He like blasts her hand away.
He did, and I think that if he would have kept his hand or his arm over his eyes, that it would have caused his heat vision to probably splinter out in multiple directions.
Yeah,
and take out more people. Like, blah! It's like, oh shit.
It's not. Yeah, it's not as simple as you guys think it is.
And that's the thing too, is that and I see where Nerdette is coming from, but it's like, if you want a simplistic version of what Superman should do and could do and can do, then I'm sorry, but like this is a version that it's more realistic, it's more grounded, it's more serious, and I think that's what I love the most about the beginnings of the DCEU was that you had a different tone compared to what you had in Marvel. If you want that kind of thing, you have that in Marvel. And here's the thing too, is that after all the bullshit, after all of the people complaining about what they're doing with the characters and people clamoring for restore the Snyderverse, all this shit, right? After all this shit is over, we are literally at the same point in time where we would have gotten the Flashpoint movie that would have reset the DCEU. You know,
I know.
It's kind of like it's like
I always
we really
say
need to go
we would have been done in
bullshit?
like 2019 with the Justice League movies, and then yeah, exactly, Flashpoint.
Yeah.
Which I love the people who, when they found out the whole Flashpoint plan, they were like, that actually sounds really good. And I'm like, yeah, should have thought of that.
And think about that. You would have had Reverse Flash, Eobard in the background, or in this movie, he would reveal
everything
that he was there the whole time, like fucking with the vents, to kind of reach his ultimate goal, which he would reveal to you what it was, what he was trying to accomplish. And I think and that's the other thing too, is that when that was announced, I believe it was Jay Oliva who revealed that. Nobody saw that coming. Nobody said, "Oh, I bet you he's going to use Reverse Flash as a person that at the end."
I figured it was going to be Flashpoint at the end because Zack had said you would do Flashpoint to reboot it, but I don't think the Reverse Flash stuff. No.
Actually, you know what? Tevi has a good point. Zod did say there's only one way this ends, Cal.
Yeah.
Either you die or I. You know what I mean? At that point, he was telling
you. No, I'm not stopping. Because you would just take, because when you think about it, Zod's purpose was to protect Krypton. Yeah. You just took that chance away from him, and now he's out for blood.
Yeah, I mean, he was gonna do if he would have beaten Superman, and then you're looking at a situation that you saw in Invincible, like what Omni-Man did to that alien planet, where he just fucking destroyed it, and that's what he was gonna do. Now, obviously, there were other heroes out there, we know now that there was Wonder Woman, and there's other characters that would have tried to stop him, but they probably
Wonder Woman
failed.
Against an army of Kryptonians. That's not going to go well for Wonder Woman.
Well, but at that point, they were all dead.
Well,
except for
true.
Zod, but still, he was more powerful than almost everybody on the planet. But I think that, if we would have got, the two Justice League movies, or three, depending on, if you would have, made 3 or 2, depending on, I'm not sure. Obviously the Batfleck movie, which is it's not going to happen, but it would have been cool to see that shit.
Don't be so sure.
Well, I mean, I just don't see how that ever occurs, but you never know.
I was just saying this. We were saying the same thing about the Snyder cut.
Yeah, but that was actually filmed. This hasn't been, but look, crazier things have happened.
True.
Crazier things have happened, okay?
Crazier thing. That's why on my channel, I've always maintained that some form or another, it will be finished in terms of animation, in terms of comics, somehow maybe live action, but right now the most likely scenarios are like animation or comics, and I'm fine with either one.
And that's the other thing, too, is that I think it's interesting that people have this stigma against animation or graphic novel, comic, what have you. People are like, no, I don't want that. It has to be live action, nothing else. It has to be live action. And I think you're really limiting yourself, because if any of those mediums, if you were to release a story on any of those mediums, right, if it got enough, it
could lead to a live action. Because here's what you're doing. And I said this on my show as well, it's like, take the comic. Let's say they do a comic. If they released a comic, and let's be honest, I think this would sell really well in terms of the comics. WB now has a firm metric that there is interest in this universe. Let's adapt this for live action and just do this as an Elseworld story.
Well, here's the thing, too, is that you have someone like James Gunn who's in charge of, him and Peter Safran. So they have their plan. They have, regardless, they have their plan on what they want to do, right?
Yeah.
So to me, there's no way that they would say, okay, let's also do a live action version of this years down the line. I mean, it's possible, but I just don't see it happening. But I do see it happening if it was a comic or an animation, because you could argue that, they could say, okay, well, we'll give them the animation version, and then we're going to move on, And at least you get to see the story be played out. You get to see the complete story of what was supposed to happen. And I think that's the most important thing, is that you're seeing the story.
Well, the other thing is that people forget, you have any idea how lifelike animation can get? Have you seen Love, Death, and Robots?
Yeah,
a lot of those 3D animation stuff. I swear there was this one where I forgot it was animation. I thought it was live action. I'm like,
you were totally immersed.
I'm like, wait a second here. I thought this was animated.
So it's
I
crazy,
still think
right?
at some point the story
animation
will be completed
would be
to some point.
Yeah, I mean, why wouldn't you want to? It's like, come on. And look, I mean, we've even heard David Ayer say the same thing, where it's like, hey, look, they deserve, to get some points on the board before they go back to old projects, and it's probably what he was. I mean, I'm certain that's what he was told, was that, hey, look, I would love to release your cut, but we need to get our new DC universe off the ground and running before we go back to older projects. And like, I get that.
We'll see if it lasts, though.
We'll see if it lasts. There were people out there that were really pushing the idea that David Zaslav was going to be the savior of the Snyderverse, and it's like, dude, you didn't know that for sure. You were guessing at that, and it's obvious that you were wrong, because he put James Gunn in charge. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
And here's the thing too, is that there's been a lot of clamor about they should have just let DeLuca and Abney run DC Studios. That would have been better, because they were going to give us the characters we wanted. Yada yada. I think they would have, but I don't think. I mean, you were going to get a lot of these characters under the helm of James Gunn, because he was already announced as the DC president. So let's say they said, hey, I know you want to do your own thing, but we want to do this first. You would have gotten, Cavill, Superman, Affleck, all these characters under the helm of a different person, not Zack Snyder. And I think they never would have lived up to our expectations, because you saw how they came across in The Flash, and in Shazam and all these other cameos. It's like, it's not what any, hardcore Snyder fan wanted. Well, it was like a bastardizing of the characters, and I think you would have gotten more of that.
Well, what I always said, what they should have done is they should have at least done the Snyderverse movies, at least the Justice League one, as a delaying tactic, so they could say, okay, so let's get our stuff in a row, let's finalize what we want to do, and let's release this stuff so we have content going out, and then that way it ends with a reboot.
Yeah. But the problem too is that you already had The Flash, you already had Shazam, Black Adam, you had all these films that were already made, and so now you have to figure out now do we go into these films and do a massive course correct? And that was the video that I was telling you about backstage, was that, and I'm not done with it yet. It's been a while. I'm going to try and finish it. But it was basically, how could someone come in and course correct the DCEU to reconnect to what Zack was doing and then reboot it when that's all done?
Because ironically, it's kind of funny when you look at Black Adam, which, by the way, ironically, so the hierarchy of power did actually change, because Black Adam was the most successful DC movie this year. But it fits in the Snyderverse when you think about it.
It does to a degree. I think it fits in
terms of tone, maybe
a little bit. Although Black Adam, the problem I had with Black Adam was that at the end of the movie, he was a good guy, and I think that's where they fucked up, because he should have been a villain. And yes, Drogo, we're talking Snyderverse
at that point. Black Adam. Here's the thing: in the comics, at that point, Black Adam was more of an anti-hero.
Exactly, but at the end of the movie, he was almost a full-on hero. His suit went from black to almost blue. I was like, what the fuck? Because like his suit had a bluish tinge to it. And I was kind of like, why are we doing that for? Keep it black, keep it simple, keep it to the character. And I always felt that at the end of the film, Dr. Fate, who I don't think should have died at the hands of Sabbac, because then when Black Adam fought Sabbac, he ended up just tearing him in half. It was just like, what
yeah, I was like, well, okay.
Yeah, well, there he goes.
The power scaling is completely wrong on that.
Yeah, and so I felt that, where they fucked up was that, after they defeated Sabbac together, they all should have, the JSA should have, gotten on their ship and flown away, and then, Dr. Fate would have said, you go, I got something I gotta take care of first, and they said, okay, and they just fly away, right? And then, because Dr. Fate can kind of materialize himself anywhere, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And so he goes back, and he goes back and he thanks Black Adam for doing what he did, and that it was a really good thing what he did, and he really showed that he's a good character, And then when he goes to shake his hand, that's when all of a sudden he gets shot with, he gets all of these images, which shows him that he was aware that the guards were there, and basically he set up his own son to die so that he could steal that power. And then he realizes,
that's what he did in the comics.
Wait, well, yeah, I think it was his nephew in the comics, but still, and then he would realize, like, and then right then Black Adam, he just punches right through Dr. Fate, you know what I mean? And then he realizes, like, wait, it was you, like, you're the one who killed him, you stole his power. And then you realize that like, Black Adam is ultimately a villain, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And he kills Dr. Fate, and then they're like, no, and so you would have had that kind of that Kaiser Sose kind of moment where you're like, holy shit, he was a bad guy the entire time. He even killed his own son. What a motherfucker. He needed that he needed that irredeemable factor to make you go, okay, he's a bad guy. And he fooled all of us. There had to be a twist at the end. He, talking to Superman, Black Adam, we should talk. It's kind of like, talk about what? And
I think in terms of Superman, I think the entire movie should have been Superman versus Black Adam instead of the JSA, because that would have drawn a much larger crowd if the entire movie was Superman versus Black Adam.
Yeah, and so I mean, realistically, and this is where the DCU went wrong. Okay,
yeah.
In terms of like on their second phase where they had a chance to course correct, and they still fucked up, because if this should have led to, and this is in the video that I was working on as well, is that there should have been a second end credit scene where the wizard shows up, or he communicates with the wizard, and the wizard tells him that he is not the champion. The true champion already exists in this world, and his name is Shazam. And so that makes him aware of Shazam. And then at the end of Fury of the Gods, obviously instead of Economos and what's her face, Harcourt, it should have been Hawkman and Cyclone. And while Shazam was making those stupid jokes, that's when Henry Cavill Superman should have landed behind him and told him, like, hey, this is serious. Like, I need your help. Like, I can't stop him without you. And then that should have led the next movie after that. Well, not directly, because you still had the Flash and everything else coming, but that should have led to a Superman Shazam versus Black Adam movie with the JSA mixed into that as well. Basically, everybody against Black Adam kind of movie.
That would have been dope.
That would have been dope. That would have been like, fuck yeah, let's go. You know what I mean? And and then that would have led to that. And so the story that I was trying to reconnect in the video that I was making was that it would lead to that movie, and then that movie would then lead to basically Justice League Part 2, because like basically you would find out that Lex Luthor is the one that was kind of manipulating everyone the entire time. He's the reason why the Inner Gang was in Kondak, because he wanted them to find the tomb of Black Adam so that Black Adam can be released onto the world to kill Superman, to make way for Darkseid. Because he was already convinced that Darkseid was going to make him, kind of like what Enchantress was going to do with the Joker. Make him the king of Gotham. He'd make him like the king of Metropolis, or he'd have his own land. You know what I mean? So he was already trying to plot his own success by, hey, if I release Black Adam, he could kill Superman. But what he didn't count on was the JSA and Shazam helping him out. So there was a lot of things you could have done to make this a really cool universe. And then they just said, we're going to reboot it. And I was like, fuck!
They should have course corrected as soon as the Snyder cut came out and just said, okay, you know what? People are excited about this cut of Justice League. Let's put our stuff on hold. Let's work with Zack to complete his story, and then we'll move on.
Yeah, I mean, right here, Venom says, I was hoping it would lead to a Justice League / JSA versus Black Adam. That would have been cool, but I think that if you have all those elements going against him, then you kind of, you're making Black Adam way stronger than he.
That's what The Rock did, really, because
yeah.
Here's the thing: Black Adam's not that powerful. It's like when he goes, "The most powerful being on Earth is Black Adam." Says who?
Like, yeah, exactly. The fact that the fact that The Rock wanted to go against Superman, I always make this comparison. This is like The Rock saying, I'm gonna make a Magneto movie, and you're like, oh, cool, fuck, tight, okay, whatever. You don't really look like him, but who cares? Like, hey, Magneto's cool. And they go, so are you gonna go against Xavier and the X-Men? No. Well, who are you gonna go against? No. I'm not going against Xavier and the X-Men. I'm going against Captain America. You were just like, wait,
what?
I'm going against Tony Stark.
They have fought before though, because so there was like a little bit more of a precedent.
But in terms of being like a direct villain, like you have to have Shazam as your direct villain and somehow incorporate it into your story. But the fact that he's like, oh, I want Superman.
But the problem is, a Black Adam versus Superman movie is going to sell more than a Black Adam versus Shazam movie because Superman is a more well-known character than Shazam is.
Well, and that's why the movie would have essentially been Shazam and Superman versus Black Adam, however you want to
like that animated short they did.
Exactly. And you could have had a lot of cool elements in that. Like you could have had a lot of the funny kind of comical parts you had in the first Shazam, where you have Superman trying to show Shazam how to be a hero. You know what I mean? Because he keeps fucking up, and then once Black Adam shows up, that's when everything gets gets way more serious. But because like as that movie is happening, right? That's when you realize how much Lex is involved in all of these stories. And I think that would have been really cool.
Yeah, would have been.
I think they really missed an opportunity there. And you actually could have kind of retconned it right back into Zack's Justice League Part 2 or Part 3, however you want to slice it up, because I mean really at the end of that film it could have been that like during the film that you have Bruce and Lois, not as a couple, but Bruce and Lois investigating, trying to figure out what Lex has been up to the entire time as they're trying to find Black Adam and destroy him. And then it leads everyone to eventually it all leads to them being at the Three Rivers, at the location of the anti-life equation. And then that's where Darkseid ends up showing up, goes to the Batcave, ends up killing Lois, coming back, killing everybody for the most part. And then the world in the next film, we're at the nightmare sequence where we have to save the world now. You know what I mean? Like you could have done that and it could have been fucking cool.
But then again, this is Warner Brothers we're dealing with, so they don't know anything. And I love how many people have come out and said they should have gone with Zack's path. Like the former president of DC freaking Comics, during one of the most, and by the way, her tenure was during some of the most creative parts of DC. Like she was the one who brought in like Grant Morrison and all those guys. But she said they should have gone with the darker tone Zack was going for.
Yeah. Oh, actually. He says, how does Amon fit in the nightmare? He doesn't, because he dies.
He rolls in on a skateboard.
Yeah.
He's next to the Batmobile on a skateboard.
Yeah, he
was a little annoying. He was a little annoying.
He was very annoying.
It was kind of cool. It was kind of meta seeing the Wonder Woman poster on his wall. So I'm like, wait, did the Wonder Woman movie come out in this universe?
I know, right?
And I'm like, wait a second here.
It's kind of like I don't know. He was really annoying. In the beginning, he was all right. And then towards the middle, it was like, okay, can we veer away from this kid now? And then at the end, it was like, oh my God, please, somebody get him out of here. You know what I mean? Come on. But, okay, so let's talk a little bit about where the DCU went wrong. Obviously, the biggest misstep was Justice League.
Yeah.
That was the biggest one. And then David Ayer's Suicide Squad. The fact that they removed Steppenwolf and Parademons from Suicide Squad early on was really bad.
Dope.
And I think that the feeling I get was that it was removed by probably Jeff Johns and John Berg and that whole regime, and not so much Zack saying no, that's my character, my villain. I don't want him in there, because I think what that does is the original Ayer cut was going to set up the arrival of Steppenwolf.
Because it interconnects everything. That's just what Marvel did, and we all know they did this stuff because because
this is where it started right here.
Yeah,
it's removing 30 minutes from BVS is where it started. I remember seeing it in the theater and thinking, I was like, something's not right. Like this is jumping around for some reason, and it doesn't need to jump around.
No, I kid you not. I was debating the BVS with Nerdette, and she kept bringing up all these criticisms about BVS, and I'm like, no, it actually happened this way. And then she goes, wait, that was in the movie? I'm like, what edition of the movie did you watch? And she watched the theatrical cut. Watch the ultimate cut. Yeah. That's all you have to watch.
The ultimate cut is a much better film. It added 30 minutes,
But the thing is, what Marvel did, and it's really stupid because this is what Warner Bros. Wanted to do. At the end of every movie, they set up the next movie with like the Tesseract being found and Thor's hammer being found. So they built to the Avengers. Stuck with this, yeah, 100. If they had like put in like the scene of like the Wonder Woman's team being sent to find the Mother Box, the Steppenwolf and Parademon showing up, it would have built a Justice League.
Yes,
more.
It would have. I mean, imagine if in the Ayer cut or in Suicide Squad, let's call it that. If if at the end, you know, because what she was, and he even said it too. Ayers even said, on the record to say that like originally she was going to be under the control of a Mother Box,
which makes sense.
Which made sense. And I mean, and for the most part, you would have had Enchantress, you know, trying to be an ally to Darkseid because obviously he's more powerful than she is, and so she would pave the way for his return. And so that would basically mirror itself later on with Lex Luthor. Like he'd be the one who would later on be the one paving the way for Darkseid's arrival.
Yeah.
But Enchantress was the first one to try and do it, and she was creating a portal, a boom tube of her own, using her magic to bring Darkseid. It's Batman Day, and you're talking about Enchantress. Well, if you listen to our conversation, Phil, but I think her, like, if she would have brought Steppenwolf to the world with parademons, and then they just take off, like you know. They don't stay there and fight. They were just like, oh, fuck, we're here. Let's get out of here, you know? But it just shows his arrival. I think that would have been huge because that would have lent to the idea of I just got out of a movie. Oh, yeah, that's right. He went and saw all the Batman movies. That would have lent to the idea of the hives, is that once they got to Earth and they took off, and they were already in, what were they in? They were in like a subway. So, I want to say they were in the subway station or in a train station, somewhere like that. But either way, if Steppenwolf and Parademon showed up, then they would have gone out and they would have started kidnapping human beings and turning them into parademons so that he can build his army and then do what they need to do. Thank you, Phil. Thank you for stopping by. I appreciate it, man. And that would have made more sense. That would have lent to the overall story, or let alone having the scene in Wonder Woman where they say, yeah, we're going to go capture this Mother Box, and they have that cut out. It's like you're eliminating all of the connective tissue. So
yeah, and they wonder what. And here's the thing, that they're like, they wanted to catch up to Marvel. Okay, fine. You're not doing what the good things that Marvel did, and you're not taking your time to establish the universe. And that's why I tell people, it's like, when you critique Zack for like going to Justice League immediately, I'm like, you realize that was not his plan. He wanted to do a Superman trilogy. Then they said, okay, no, you have to do a Justice League thing. Okay, can I have like a Superman movie, a Batman movie, and then we do BVS? Nope, you have to do Justice League now. So he's like, okay, what can I do with this?
So Tevia writes, question, how would that work with connecting to Justice League?
Well, because you introduce the parademons and you show that they're here, and that they're kind of like establishing an outpost, if you will, for when Steppenwolf comes.
Well, no, like Steppenwolf and the parademons would have came at the same time.
Oh, okay.
And then, and then when they take off, because they have their own mission, right? They're not going to stay there and like, I want to fight the Suicide Squad. No, they're like, fuck this, we're out of here. You know what I mean? We have work to do, and so they would then create their hive over in Gotham, where the parademons go out, kidnap people, cocoon them, and turn them into parademons. And we saw the concept art of Batman discovering the hive of parademons.
I wish that was in the Snyder cut. That would have been so cool.
And so then what that would have done for Enchantress is that would have secured her spot at at the side of Darkseid. So when Darkseid arrives, he won't view her as another adversary. He'd view her as an ally. And so she would, that would spare her life and be like, yeah, now I'm allied with a stronger god in Darkseid. And so that's what she was trying to do. And it's funny because, she tells the Joker that like he would have been the Prince of Gotham if she would have helped him out. And so you see that kind of dynamic portraying itself over and over again, because here you have her telling the Joker, "Hey, I'll make you the Prince of Gotham if you if you help me out." And then you have you would essentially have Darkseid or Desaad telling Enchantress like, "Hey, if you help us out, you'll be at his side and you'll be, you'll be spared." And then later on, you would have gotten that with Lex Luthor, is that he would have thought that, oh, by bringing them here, I've secured my place in his army, and I'll be spared, and everyone else that I hate will die.
Mm-hmm.
So that whole mentality, that whole thought process, kind of plays itself out over and over again as the layers of villains kind of fall through, and I think that's really cool.
Mm-hmm. It was,
but Enchantress died, and they stopped her, but not before Steppenwolf and the Parademons came in. Because I mean, it was when he arrives in Themyscira. I mean, he just boom tube from like across the fucking universe to get there, and that's fine. I was like, yeah, that's cool.
That's where boom tube actually works. So there you go.
Yeah, exactly. So I think at the end, Zack was like, well, we'll just have him boom tube, right in there. It doesn't really matter. But I think it would have been cool to realize that, he was boom tubing from Gotham, essentially.
Mm-hmm.
And then at the end, you have 3 mother boxes powering a boom tube strong enough to boom tube all of Darkseid and his army to Earth. You know what I mean? And so I was like, yeah, that's cool. It kind of makes sense. But he writes, what would that make sense with connecting the Zack Snyder Justice League and Suicide Squad? Well, we just explained that. So
yeah, there you
go. Justice League Chapter 2 would have started with a parademon hive discovered by Batman. Yeah, I mean, yeah. And I think that this sounds really bad, but I think that when it came to Justice League, I think that's where the whole stupid scene where Batman fights a parademon on the rooftop.
Yeah, I think that's what I was about to say. I think that's
where
what that
came from.
That kind of, because you could obviously redo that scene and then put it in Justice League, and that's how you link like the parademons are already here from the Suicide Squad and all that.
Yeah, and I think that would have been one of the early scenes in the movie, because I mean, if you look at it, if you watch Zack Snyder's Justice League, which is a fabulous movie, you don't see Batman until like, I want to say like an hour into the movie. You finally see Batman in the suit.
Yeah.
And so that's why you had that big entrance of him on the gargoyle and looking like a badass. You're like, wow, there he is, And instead in Justice League, they try to shoehorn him in like right in the beginning. So
the thing about these movies, and that's what I always tell about people with Zack's movies, is that he got how to portray the Justice League as like gods, because that's what that's how you differentiate DC from Marvel. DC is more of the gods of the god component.
Yeah. They flew around and landed on the same rooftop. Like, how do you do that? Like, it's like, get the fuck out of here with that. You know what I mean? Like,
according to Joss Whedon, that's how that works. So
yeah, that's how flying works.
Mm-hmm. They fly now.
Yeah. So and so that's where they went wrong. I mean, immediately removing 30 minutes from BVS was a crime, because they're like, oh, 30 minutes, that'll make or break if they go see it again. Dude, you had to have a strong story. I mean,
people will show up if it's a strong, particularly if it's a Batman versus Superman movie, where you already leaked that Wonder Woman is showing up. I still think what they should have done, the one thing I would do to fix BVS, besides keeping in that half hour, is not revealing the marketing that Wonder Woman's in this movie. Because can you imagine if we had to discover it alongside Bruce that she's Wonder Woman? That way, like, she's walking off the plane, they go, Miss Prince. Everyone's like, wait, what?
Yeah, well, that's the thing too, is that unfortunately DC wasn't evolved enough and established enough to where they could do that, and so they had to, they had to show that, because they were like, oh well, we have to advertise her so like it's more butts and seats, because that's a big character.
True.
But it would have been a bigger payoff if you didn't know she was even in the fucking movie and just suspected it. You know what I mean? But I mean, the 30 minutes alone, it was a bad move. And not to mention, you removed the cameo of Steppenwolf in the scout ship, which was like,
you wonder why it doesn't sound very connected.
But then you release the scene like a few days after the movie comes out. You release that scene on on the internet, like, oh yeah, here's a deleted scene of the villain of the Justice League movie. You're like, why would you do that? Like,
and the stupid part is how he has the Snyder cut design in that deleted scene. No, let's redo his design for Justice League. I'm like, this doesn't work.
You know, it's yeah, that was really bad that they even released that, because then it showed you that, like, oh, you've made changes already. So they took out 30 minutes. They removed the mother box end credit scene from Wonder Woman. They removed obviously Steppenwolf from being seen in BVS, right? And then you got Suicide Squad, which we've already heard David Ayer say that after Deadpool, they were like, yeah, let's turn David Ayer's thoughtful, soulful movie into a fucking comedy, into what we got. Which was fucked up, because you can tell that movie was so chopped up. It was like, holy shit. So they fucked over Suicide Squad, and then the abomination that was Justice League was just like, holy shit, what have you done?
It was so funny, because when I sat down to watch the Snyder cut, and I was like, I wonder why Ray Fisher is so upset. Then I walk out of the Snyder cut going, now I understand, because good God, did they butcher him.
They destroyed him. And, what's this? The marketing for BVS was all wrong. This is what Joe was writing. The marketing for BVS was all wrong. They marketed it like who would win. Well, yeah, it was supposed to be marketed as Batman versus Superman. The movie's called that, so that's why they were like...
I love how that wasn't even the title that Zack wanted for the movie. They were just like, no, Batman versus Superman. Because can you imagine if they actually labeled that as a world finest movie?
Yeah, that would have been totally different.
There you go.
Totally different.
Because it's not, because they market the fight, and I'm like, the fight's like 10 minutes in the movie.
The fight that they had in the movie is really cool, though.
It was dope.
That was awesome.
And I still say BVS has the best Batman action scene of all time in that warehouse scene.
Oh, yeah.
They managed to recreate the Arkham games. That's what that is.
That was a badass scene. And then even that, like, they released that scene ahead of time for fans to see, and it was like, why are you doing? Because they were like, oh shit. And so, I mean, going back to BVS, they never should have released a trailer that showed Doomsday. They never should have released footage of Wonder Woman. I mean, they should get that a secret. I agree. But showing Doomsday was like, okay,
they're killing Superman. That was immediately my first, because even because back then I wasn't like a comic book guy, but even I knew that Doomsday killed Superman.
Yeah, I had the issue. And then my comics went up in flames. My sister's house burned down. My comics were all there. It's a long story. I still have some of them, though. There's one back there. But and they tried to course correct in the worst possible way, and it's just really sad what ended up happening with that. It's just fucked.
So much potential wasted.
Oh my, I know. And then when we thought, okay, there's a chance that they can course correct again.
Like, no,
James Gunn decides to reboot, and he gives us a slate that, I mean, there's some projects I want to see, definitely, but it's just a slate. And why would you release that slate before these films come out? And I think a part of me thinks, okay, I think he did it because he didn't want these films to come out, and then people to be like, oh, so we're getting more of this. This is what we're getting. These movies. I think he wanted to show, like, hey, look, I'm going to give you this, and these films are coming out this year.
Well,
they're not
the mistake is when he said the word reboot, because what that immediately told people is, hey, I don't have to watch any of these movies. They're not going to matter pretty soon. I don't have to go to the theaters. So what he should have done is just release the slate saying, okay, so here's what we're doing, because people could have assumed, hey, Henry Cavill's going to be in Superman Legacy. And then wait till the Flash come out. I also would have reversed the Flash and Aquaman, so we didn't have the whole thing. Does Aquaman take place in the new universe, the old universe? But the point is, I would have ended on the Flash and then said, okay, so we're doing a hard reboot.
Yeah.
Because hey, if this universe is starts getting successful, because I still think some of these movies would have made more cash had it not been for the reboot announcement, like Shazam. Or they hadn't announced the Black Adam thing before. But the other problem is that he walked in with a black eye saying, oh my God. Well, first off, he's walking in with a black eye trying to link Blue Beetle to his cinematic universe. We all know how that turned out. And then he already has the backlash from the Henry Cavill Superman incident. So it's like, dude, I mean, you're not off to a good start. I liked it too. I thought it was great.
I thought it was a great movie. I really liked it a lot, but you know, and I get why he was like, yeah, he's gonna be in the DCU because why not? I mean, and that movie doesn't connect to anything, so he's like, oh, cool. Like there is no connection to anybody in that movie other than references.
The problem is when you do that, you link that movie to your universe, even if it's not. And guess what happens? You're now walking in with an already black eye.
Well, and the thing too is that now what you're doing is you're not rebooting. What you're doing is you're resetting it, and you're cherry picking what you want and what you don't want.
Well, we already knew that. The minute he says, "I'm going to keep all the Suicide Squad actors,"
yeah.
But I'm like,
well,
James, you can't do Peacemaker season 2 if it's going to reference season 1 because Zack's Justice League show up at the end of season 1.
Yeah, I know, right?
It's like, fuck. What are you doing? Doing Peacemaker season 2?
So Tevye writes, I always maintain doing Death of Superman early was a bad idea. Now here's the thing with that. So, you know, after he made Man of Steel, the studio was heavily pressuring Zack to like, okay, when do we get to Justice League? When do we get Justice League? We need to get to Justice League because they wanted that Marvel kind of money. And so he was like, okay. And I remember after Man of Steel came out, there was an interview with him and somebody said, oh, are you going to do a Justice League movie next? And he was like, well, Justice League movies, like, I would think that, you know, Man of Steel 2 would be the next route, right?
Yeah, because he said you have to get Superman's house in order first before you go to the Justice League.
Right. And so I think that Zack would have taken an entirely different approach if they weren't like, hey, we need a path on how to get to Justice League. So he said, okay, how do I make a path there? You know, and make it an epic story. Like how do I get us there? And so that's when, you know, him and Jeff Johns and Jim Lee created that whole storyboard where that was the initial concept for the story and how they were going to get to Justice League in part 2 and part 3 and all that shit. I think that, you know, if they would have said, hey, just take your time and we want you to kind of be the architect of this world, it would have gone a little differently. It probably would have been longer.
If they had been patient, because they could have gone beyond Justice League Part 3 if they wanted to, if it was still successful and explored like the kid replacing Bruce's Batman. Or they could have done a little like in Final Crisis, where I think would have been really cool, is if the post-credit is Batfleck, except that he wasn't killed by the Omega Beams. He was like sent back in time, and he's the dude on the horse that looks like Ben Affleck in the middle of the Snyder cut. Right? That would have been great.
That would have been cool. That would have been very cool. And so that was the whole thing too when he announced, okay, we're going to do, when James Gunn said we're going to do Brave and the Bold. And then the picture he posts is a picture during the time when Bruce was missing, when he was lost in time, and you had Dick Grayson as Batman, and you had, you know,
and the funny part is that he then changed that picture immediately because enough people were like, "Oh, is Dick Grayson gonna be Batman?" Wait a second, I posted the wrong picture.
Yeah, why would you have posted that picture? That was the first thing I thought about when I saw it. I was like, "Wait, that's Dick Grayson Batman."
I was that like, would have been cool though. That would have been a cool story to do. I would have been fine with that, but if you're telling me it's going to be Bruce Wayne as Batman, why did James, you're a comic book fan. You know what people are going to think when you post that. That's the thing.
Well, and then, so when I saw that, I thought, okay, wait a minute. I think I know what he's going to do. We know that there was a scene filmed in The Flash where Batman says, find us, Barry, you have to find us, whatever, where it appears as though he's lost in time. So I thought, okay, so are they going to portray that Affleck, that Bruce Wayne, Batfleck, is going to be lost in time, and that we'll see him again later on down the line, like in a team-up movie or whatever. And so when Brave and the Bold starts, you know, in this new DCU, Batman is missing.
That would have been cool.
You know what I mean? Like, so it's like, oh, so you kind of saw that element right there where he was lost in time. And so that's basically, there is no Bruce Wayne when Brave and the Bold starts. And then you would have that kind of Obi-Wan and Anakin type of relationship between Dick Grayson and Damian Wayne, where he's trying to train him as best he could. He thinks he can do it, but Damian's giving him so much pushback that he's like, fuck, man, I don't know if I can train this kid. Like, what do I do? And so I thought maybe that's what they were going to do. But boy, was I wrong.
They should have, because that would have been way better, because we know they're obviously not rebooting. And honestly, it's bad. It's looking bad from a PR standpoint if he starts keeping all of like his people and then just throws out everyone else.
He's going to. I mean, it's already
He's going
done.
to, but I'm like it
Gal
looks
Gadot,
really bad.
Gal's gone. I don't see her ever going to coming back as the character. Tavia writes, question: how do you feel about the Authority getting a movie? To me, that doesn't bother me. It's something
cool.
new. It's something different. It's something fresh in terms of like, you know, in fans' minds. So I think it's a good idea. Just to give everyone something different, and I'm cool with that. I think they're going to be the more violent side of his DC universe. Which
can you imagine if he brings in Zack to direct the Authority?
Oh God, I don't think Zack will ever come back to direct anything. To be honest with you, when it comes to DC, I feel
when it comes to Warner Brothers, because it's like after everything he went through, it's like
it's like thank you, but no thank you.
Again, I would love for him to do his stuff.
So, do you guys believe Superman Legacy will be good and succeed despite the actors and writer strike still going on? I don't know. I'll have to wait and see.
From what I can tell, from what he has released right now, I don't think so, because he's weighing too heavily on the Superman nostalgia, and like with Returns, it doesn't work anymore.
Right.
Particularly when he starts referring to Superman as a big galoot, and I'm like, that's the same attitude that made Superman a joke for so many years.
Was it galoot or was it a big lug? Something like that.
Both. He used both.
And Droga, he writes, but Affleck's Batman never had a Damian
that we know of. That we know of.
But here's the thing, though, is that if you were going to, reset your DCU, in this iteration he does. That's all you're saying, is that in this iteration he has it. So. But like I said, that's not even happening. I just thought that because of that one scene that they filmed where he's like, "Find me, Barry! You gotta find me."
That's in the behind the scenes for the Flash, by the way.
And so I thought for sure, like, if they keep that scene, maybe that's what they're gonna do. Is that in this new timeline that the Flash created, Batman is lost in time, and then Dick Grayson and Damian Wayne are now gonna be Batman and Robin. Respectfully.
But the stupid part is that he didn't even reset a timeline. He just went to another Earth. That's not what Flashpoint is.
So, and that's the thing too, is that when it comes to the Flash, right? Okay, so with the Flash, it's like at the end of the movie by showing George Clooney, that didn't solve anything. It didn't do anything. It just, all it showed was that Ezra Miller, his version of Barry Allen is lost somewhere in the multiverse. If that. I don't even know if that's what they were trying to establish. All I know is that he showed up in a different iteration, in a different timeline where Clooney is Batman. That's it. That's all you know. And so are we ever going to see him again? Is he ever going to show up again? I don't know. I don't know if James Gunn's plan is like, later on down the line, I'm going to have Ezra show up in a Flash movie, or who knows? We may never see him ever again.
The other problem that I've always said on my show to consider is that with the writer strike going on and Warner Brothers hemorrhaging money, we may not get the slate that James Gunn announced. Likely, if this thing goes on, Warner Brothers is strapped for money. First off, we won't see the entire Justice League in the Superman movie. That's the first thing, and we're probably
but here's the thing though, is that when it comes to the franchises that that bring the most money. DC, he's already said it, like DC, Harry Potter, The Lord of the Rings. Those are some of the franchises that they're going to spend their money on, because they know that if they strike and they hit with those, that the returns on those will be massive. So I think you're still going to get a lot of what James Gunn and Peter Safran were trying to do, but a lot of it hinders on, will Superman Legacy be a success? I honestly don't know.
From the way he's been talking about it, I don't think it will, but it's also the least I could see them doing is trimming out a lot of the obscure projects like Swamp Thing and Booster Gold. Probably they'll go more with Batman, Superman, Wonder Woman, maybe Green Lantern. In other words, the IPs that are the most well-known of that slate will keep. The other ones will be thrown in the trash.
Yeah, and he's already kind of carving out the Terrifics, even though he hasn't announced a project for them. But I think the Terrifics are definitely going to get a movie, and it wouldn't surprise me if they even got a series on HBO Max, or actually Max, not HBO Max.
Everyone just says HBO Max, so it's fine.
I know. So hold on. We had a comment right here. the Flash shouldn't have been a multiverse movie. I love the Flash. I love Flashpoint, but the story has done. Yeah, no.
Everyone thinks that this one story.
Well, and here's the thing too is that just the other day I made my my Flashpoint trailer based on the Flash
It
trailer.
looked good, by the way.
Thank you. And so look, and it's not perfect, but the idea was that like, what if they did a Flashpoint story instead? Like,
which they were. At the minute they said that they were gonna have Momoa versus Godot, I'm like, I want that so much.
Yeah, and so like the idea with the trailer, like the story, because I know Ryan was like, so what is the story that would have been behind the movie that you're showing here? I was like, well, the idea would have been that you would have had, the Atlanteans and the armies of Themyscira at war, the Amazons at war with each other. Essentially the same thing that you got in the Flashpoint story, but at the same time, Darkseid shows up to take over the world. You know what I mean? So like now, not only do you have this war happening between humans and Amazons and Atlanteans, but now you have the third, or you have the fourth one of Darkseid showing up with his army to destroy the world. You're just like, fuck, what are we gonna do?
And so Alejandro brings up a good point, by the way. DC is not a sure bet anymore, because the problem is with these movies tanking, and like the Flash is a Justice League character, so it's a relatively well-known IP that they put a crap ton of marketing into, and that still like did horribly. So really, DC is not the strong brand that it was. It's not as strong a brand as it was at the beginning of the year. All these movies flopping killed DC's momentum that they had.
Yeah. And Tavia writes, the Flash shouldn't have been a multiverse story from the very beginning because the story has been done to death.
Yes.
And frankly, I would rather the Flash team up with Wally West. So one of the things that me and Ryan have talked about, Ryan Zeverfett over on his channel, Zeverfett, is that it wouldn't surprise us if James Gunn went with Wally West.
Me too.
As his version of the Flash. And that would allow you to bring back a Ezra's Barry Allen or another Barry Allen later on down the line. But like, if you didn't want to do Barry Allen, let's say you're like, hey, we'll bring back Ezra at a different time. He's still our Barry Allen. Then you can do Wally West. And in this world, he does like in this world, the Flash is missing or is presumed dead, based on certain events. So, I think that's something that he might end up doing, but. I mean, look, whenever you think of a Justice League, you think of a Barry Allen Flash. You think of a
not necessarily, because in the Justice League animated cartoon, it was Jon Stewart and Wally West.
Right, but I'm saying in the traditional sense, it's always Hal Jordan, Barry Allen, and they have that great relationship together where they're always like kind of ripping on each other. But it's going to be interesting to see what he does. I mean, we know that you are going to get some characters in Superman Legacy. You're going to get a bunch of the Terrifics. You're going to get what was it? Was it Guy Gardner?
Guy Gardner is going to be a Green Lantern in Superman Legacy, but I do know that the Green Lantern thing is going to be a buddy cop between Hal Jordan and Jon Stewart. So obviously, I'm going to go see that. There you go.
Well, and that's going to be a series on Max. I don't think it's even going to be a movie. And so,
which is weird because it's going to be a pivotal thing where they're going to hint the threat. That should be a movie.
I know, right?
What are you doing?
When I heard that, the first thought that I got was, is he trying to build up to a, like, is he going to use, is he using the concept of Final Crisis? Not, what's the other
Blackest Night?
No. My God, I'm blanking right now. The one where Batman shoots Darkseid.
That was Final Crisis.
Yeah, okay, so Final Crisis. Because when you see what's his name? Darkseid's son.
Orion.
They find Orion, on the docks, like fucking dead. And then the lanterns show up as well, like, hey, what's going on? You know what I mean? And they're trying to figure out what's happening. I thought for a minute, I was like, I wonder if they're gonna do that. I wonder if it's gonna start off on the docks, and then the lanterns show up, and they're like, what's going on? Because it's like a detective series, so it's gonna lead to a bigger story. So I thought, oh, maybe it starts with that, and then Batman would show up as well, like, what's going on? You know what I mean? Like, well, I don't know.
What I said is that what would be interesting is if they actually do Blackest Night for like their big tentpole thing, and then this sets up all the Black Lanterns, and they could use the Green Lantern series to introduce the other cores, like the Rage ones, the Star Sapphires, and then we could have like in the Blackest Night movie all the different Justice Leaguers with rings.
Mm-hmm. But the thing too is that like I think when you think of a big bad, I don't know, it wouldn't surprise me if he's already dropping the elements of Darkseid, because you have to have Darkseid eventually. You don't have to have him. You don't have to have him right away. But I think James Gunn is going to I think he's going to slowly build to Darkseid. And so
That's true.
If you had someone like Wrath the Bat, boom, dead body, Orion. You know what I mean? You're just like, oh shit. You would know exactly what the fuck just happened. Like, whoa, that was Darkseid. Now I don't think. Go ahead.
The one problem with that is that Final Crisis takes off like pretty much immediately after they find that dead body, and this would be like really stretching that story out if it was like did they find the body, then all of a sudden what's going to be from here to like the actual Final Crisis movie.
Well, yeah, and so I think that they could adapt elements of that. Like they're gonna find something, like, because like I could see a body like laying on the docks, probably like dead. He's sizzling. He looks fucking creepy. And then they show up and they're like, "What is this?" You know what I mean? And then Batman shows up and it's dark and they're trying to figure out like how did he die? Who like what could have killed him? And then that's when they go back out in the universe and then they start investigating out there and. It could be really cool, but Droga writes, no, he says, I don't think Gunn is going to use Darkseid, and Darkseid exists outside the multiverse. There's only one Darkseid. Yeah, he's everywhere and he's nowhere. So, but I think that if you, I don't want to say if he's smart, but I would imagine he's going to start to sprinkle in elements of Darkseid and eventually lead to a Darkseid war. Down the line, because you have to. You can't just ignore.
You need to, because he's the big bad of the DCU universe. You can't ignore it.
Well, and I think that if his first, because all the rumors I'm hearing is that Justice League New Frontier is going to be kind of where he's heading towards. So New Frontier, if you guys haven't seen the animated movie, and if you watch it, obviously it'll take place in modern time. But I think it's gonna have that kind of whimsical feel to it, the way that the New Frontier did, and by having a villain like the Center, it's a villain that they can all team up against and defeat. Where it's not like you don't have to bring that back. You know what I mean? Like, hey, they defeated it. They came together, but in this world, the Justice League already exists. Your heroes already exist. And so. And they come together, defeat the Center, and then they move forward from there. I mean, and even Legacy. I mean, you might even get Brainiac. Who the fuck knows? But I think he's trying to build towards something. I don't think it's just like, oh yeah, we're gonna build towards the Center, or
sure
we're
gonna
build towards Brainiac.
Sure he is. I'll believe it when I actually see it. He's changed his mind so many times. I'm like, yeah, I'll believe it when I see it.
What if he uses Mongol, the Crime Syndicate, and the Anti-Monitor? I mean, it's possible.
I don't think he's going to use anything that has to do with the multiverse, considering, one, everyone's burnt out on that, and two, you do not do that early in the universe. Mongol, they could do.
They had Mongal. That was dumb, too.
She blew up. He comes for payback. He comes for payback because his daughter got blown up.
Yeah, that's it. He's like, where is she? Who killed her? Oh, fucking bunch of nobodies.
And also, here's the thing: I don't think they're going to do anything with Darkseid because that's in the general audience. That's linked to Zack stuff right now.
Is it though? I mean, like for us, it is.
Well, the Snyder Cut, in relative terms, the Snyder Cut just came out, and he's a significant character in that.
Okay, well, let me ask you this: if they were to have released Zack Snyder's Justice League in theaters. Let's say when Justice League first came out, if that whole debacle never happened and we got Zack's movie, Zack Snyder's Justice League, the way we got it, today, if that would have came out back in 2017.
You mean 4 hours? No.
Well, I'm saying, let's say it's like a 3.5 hour movie. I mean, Infinity War or Endgame was 3.5 hours. So let's say they did that.
Yeah.
Do you think that would have changed everything for DC? That they would have been like, yeah, let's keep going with what Zack wanted to do.
Yep. Based upon the public reception of the Snyder Cut, where even like people that didn't like Snyder's movies over DC are like, yeah, this is actually pretty solid. This is what he was building toward. And there was like at the same time as like release the Snyder Cut was trending when that movie was out. What also came out, what also was trending was I was wrong about Zack Snyder. So at that point, everyone was like, okay, so this is what he was building toward.
I mean, it's a pretty epic fucking movie.
It's because of that movie I have my channel.
Yeah.
So
I mean, it was huge.
And yeah, 100%, it would have. I think at that point that would have corrected all the stuff. It would have made its money, and then Warner Bros. Would have been like, okay, you know what? We have faith. Do what you need to do.
Well, and then now we're left with James Gunn, and we're left with what he's going to put out with Gods and Monsters Chapter 1.
But then again, we it's still Warner Brothers.
Exactly, but we're not going to see any of that until, well, I guess next year is when we're going to see
Creature Commandos. I'm like,
why is that?
Why is that your first project? Why isn't it Superman?
I don't know. That was a little weird. I was like, why are we starting with animation? I mean, I like animation. I'm going to watch Creature Commandos, but why are we
extremely obscure characters? It's the point where I consider myself kind of a DC scholar. And when he said Creature Commandos, I'm like, who?
Yeah, I was like, Creature Commandos, the fuck are we doing here? I mean, it might be good. I know Frank Grillo's in it, and he's excited about it. So
my problem is I don't like James Gunn's potty humor, and he can't help himself. So when people say, "Oh, he won't do that for Superman," he can't help himself.
We'll see what he does. I don't
considering
know.
He wrote it too. So I'm like, well, here's the best part, because he's writing and directing it. If the movie flops, it's his own fault.
Well, but that's the thing too, though, is that he's going out on a limb because he's the one he's directing and writing Superman Legacy. You know what I mean? Like, if you ever wanted to point blame at anybody, he's giving you the opportunity to, like, hey, I'm gonna write it, I'm gonna direct it, and if it sucks, it's on me. So I appreciate that at least, but it's kind of like, well, it's not a pissing contest, so like I kind of just want quality content, not just taking total accountability, even if it sucks. But the thing too is that if he would have kept Henry Cavill as Superman, I don't think that any of us would have liked. I don't think any of us would have liked his version of Henry Cavill Superman. Directed by James Gunn. I don't think that would have been.
I don't think he should have been direct. I honestly think that as the head of DC Studios, he shouldn't be directing anything.
Yeah, I mean, I do agree with you in the sense that, like, I think it would have been cool if he would have put a slate out that says, hey, this is how we're going to end out phase 1 of the DCEU. And then that's going to lead into, but the problem I think he had was that all these fucking movies were already made, like Black Adam, Shazam, The Flash, you know what I mean? Like, so, but there were ways around it though. There really was.
There are ways around it if you're creative enough.
Yeah, pretty much. I mean, it just sucks that it happened the way it did. So, but I mean, if there was but I like the idea you were saying with Blackest Night. I think that'd be really cool if they did something like that.
Because it's a Green Lantern thing. So I'm like, if ever there was a project you start teasing in Green Lantern, and if you're not going to do Darkseid, that's the next logical choice.
Yeah, it probably would be. But like I said, everything I'm hearing is that the next Justice League movie is going to be Justice League New Frontier. That's what.
Which I'm fine with. I like that. So,
but still, I mean, but that's what I'm told that they're building towards is Justice League New Frontier. But we'll see.
But again, that's the founding of the Justice League. Unless you're going to do a flashback, which I don't think they're going to do. Jeez. Just have like well, you actually can't have Starro invade because James Gunn killed him in his Suicide Squad movie, which according to him is still canon.
Well, unless when Legacy comes out, that there is no Justice League, but there is a DC universe. Like, these characters already exist.
I'm pretty sure he said that there is a Justice League.
That's what I thought too. But I mean, fuck, how many times he changed his goddamn mind?
Yeah, he's probably gonna change his mind.
I mean, imagine having a Superman movie where you have characters that are working together per se, but there is no like like a solid Justice League movie or Justice League team. But then again, after Legacy, you have the Authority, so you pretty much have to have a Justice League already set up if the Authority is your next project,
Well, the thing is that I still don't think any Justice Leaguers should show up in the Superman movie, particularly since we haven't had a Superman movie in 10 years. You gotta stick and give me a solid solo Superman movie.
Yeah, I mean, and that's the thing too, is that it's one thing to have Mr. Terrific, and more of the Terrifics in the movie, Guy Gardner, like having these
Girl.
smaller Hot Girl, having the smaller characters kind of show up and have a role in it. I think that that's okay, but I don't know, man. It wouldn't surprise me if he had a Batman and a Wonder Woman, or at least some of the Justice League, like somehow not really make a cameo in terms of like fighting with him, but communicate with him about what's going on.
Or they'll make a passing reference to, oh, Wonder Woman is doing this and Batman's doing this.
Yeah, Wonder Woman is in a different castle. But I mean, when we go back to Batman, right? I mean, who would you want to see as the new Batman?
Jensen Ackles.
Yeah, that's the
he has
guy
a fantastic he has a fantastic Batman voice, first off, and he has the physicality to play the role. I could totally buy him being Bruce Wayne.
Yeah, I mean, especially after just seeing him in The Boys.
Yes,
that was
so
fucking so good, dude. It was
so
good.
That fight scene with him and Butcher and Huey versus Homelander.
That was great.
I was like, yes.
Soldier Boy, dude. That guy, dude. He was, so far out of the entire show, he was my favorite character. I fucking love that character.
All right, fun fact. I took that fight scene and I made a fan edit that is Homelander versus Zack Snyder's Justice League, and Homelander gets his ass kicked.
Sam Worthington is my choice. No, I don't think
so.
No. Sam Worthington, he's not a very good actor. I don't think he's that great. And to me, he's on the same level as like a Charlie Hunnam, where it's like they just.
It depends on the role. I think Charlie could play a pretty decent Green Arrow.
Yeah, that's been tossed around like to death at this point, but
particularly after the Rebel Moon trailer came out, which looks awesome, by the way.
Yeah, let's talk about that a little bit. I mean, I'm really excited to see what he's gonna do with Rebel Moon, and I think again, when you have all these accounts and people saying that, oh, Zack's going to come back to DC, Zack's going to come back to DC, and then you look at what he's making with Rebel Moon, like, I'm sorry, dude, but like, he's so invested in that IP. I mean, he's not only is he filming a part 1, a part 2, which is already filmed and he's developing right now, but it's going to be a trilogy. And on top of that, there's going to be spin-offs. And on top of that, there's going to be more shit games and all kinds of shit. I don't see how he's gonna be like, all right, so cool, this is going great. I'm gonna go ahead and go make Justice League now. That's a massive film. To do a Justice League movie, well, one alone, that would take up so much of his time away from what he's already creating over there. You know what I mean? Well, I mean that's huge.
What they could do, let's say the stars align and they wanted him to come back to finish the story. What they could do, bring him on more as an executive producer role and find someone else to direct it, just so he goes, okay, so here's the basic story. Here are the story beats these movies have to follow. Go crazy.
But that's the problem, is that he's not the DC president or head
True.
of DC Studios. James Gunn is, and that's James Gunn's job.
No, I know. Yeah,
that's what I'm saying. Like it's there's so many elements that you have to do mental gymnastics to get around that it doesn't make any sense.
The problem with the whole James Gunn thing is that James Gunn keeps opening up avenues for them to do something when they're like, yes, exactly. Yeah, that'd be hilarious. Where it's like, they're like, oh, we're going to do Elseworlds and like we're expanding the Batman universe. And I'm like, okay, so if you're expanding the Batman universe, a competing cinematic universe, then you're telling me you can't do like 1 or 2 Snyderverse Justice League movies if Zack somehow fandangled it to work, at least on the DC side. On the DC side, they have no excuse.
But see, that's my point, is that I don't think that James Gunn really wants somebody else to be coming in like Zack and saying, hey, this is the outline for everything. He's gonna be like, no, this is my universe, so I'm crafting on my own.
And that's the thing. I would believe that,
but he's a buddy.
if he was not also telling Matt Reeves, expand your universe too, add in all this stuff. I mean, I guess just Batman, but still, he's already having a competing cinematic universe that so far is more popular than anything he's ever put out on DC.
At the same time, he inherited the Batman, and he also made sure to make it an Elseworld story. Like, it's his own universe. I mean, he didn't have to do that. He could have been like, hey, Matt Reeves, I love what you're doing, but now that I'm taking over, he needs to be a part of this universe. I mean, they could have done that, but they didn't, because Matt Reeves is an acclaimed filmmaker. That they're like, hey, you do your thing, that's fine. We're gonna be doing our thing as well. So you're gonna have two.
That's my point.
Kind of crazy.
That's my point, is that they could just say, okay, and by this is in the event that Zack somehow got enough time off from all that other stuff. Let's say he approached them. You're already having another Elseworlds universe over here. You have it set up so you could do so you can continue the Snyderverse with at least just Justice League Part 2 and 3 and be done with it. You have the tools and the storytelling ability to do that, and you keep telling me, well, it's not because it's going to compete with his cinematic universe. Then why is he continuing the Batman? Because he could have just said, no, crank it.
Okay, so look, Alejandro writes, there's no guarantee Netflix even continues Rebel Moon after Part 2. Look at Army of the Dead, damn near might be abandoned for Rebel Moon. And that's the thing, too, is that, okay, so even at Netflix, they are, what is this? Why is this? Okay. So, what was I saying? Oh, yeah, so just having his time being put onto Rebel Moon and not focused on Army of the Dead and that whole universe, like, you can see how things have slowed down over there when it comes to the Army of the Dead universe, or his Dead universe, because he's doing Rebel Moon. There isn't somebody else over there who's like, oh yeah, I have fucking Joe Blow over here. He's running the Dead universe while I'm doing this. No, he's doing it all. And so again, if he were to leave to go do DC, then all these projects would just be abandoned for the most part, because he's not there to run it. And you're seeing that with his Dead universe. The guy can only be in so many places at once, and he keeps talking about how they're working on animated projects for that and everything, and but also a lot slower.
But also, Alejandro makes a good point. There's no guarantee they'll even continue it after Part 2, because Netflix is known for canceling stuff before we get an actual ending to it. So honestly, here, my whole thing on this is that crazier stuff has happened in the past to me to think, okay, is it guaranteed it's going to happen? No, but I'm not going to say it can't happen.
No, of course not. I mean, I'm never going to say it won't ever happen. I don't see it happening anytime soon, but anything
it's harder.
Is possible.
It's difficult. I'm not saying it's not difficult, but honestly, and I say it's on my show, it's more possible than people think. In other words, there are the chess pieces are in position. I mean, the chess moves are planned out. People just have to move the pieces. And that's just me.
Yeah, no, and I get that, but it just, at this point, it doesn't seem like it's ever going to be a possibility at this point. And as much as I want to see it, but I do agree that I think the best way to go about it at this point is through animation. If you did an animated Justice League, not even like a Justice League 2 and 3, just an animated a Zack Snyder Justice League Part 2, or whatever the fuck you want to call it, and it incorporates 2 and 3 together, that's it. It's like, bam, there you go.
You can even do it as an animated mini-series. But it's like, and also, because here's the thing with animation allows, you can get the entire you can get the entire cast from the Snyder Cut back, because you can just have them, okay, so go into this recording booth and record your lines for the entire thing. It'll take like a day, and then we'll just edit together. You're good to go.
Here's a question from Tevia. He says, question, do you believe connecting video games to the movies is doomed to fail?
I do. 100%. Because here's the thing. Even if he says, oh, it's just minor stuff. Here's the thing. If you're going to reference stuff in the movie, the problem with that is that the video game audience and the movie audience, he's approaching this to. Here's my problem with James Gunn, and this goes with the obscure characters. He's approaching it too much like a fan and not enough as a business person when he green lights all these projects, because he's like, okay, this would be cool, this would be cool. But he doesn't realize that the majority of people going to see these are general audience movie goers, and they're not going to go to the video games for plot points that you reference in the movies.
Right.
It just won't. It won't work.
Well, but I mean, we saw that when it came to like Battlefield 2, or Star Wars Battlefront 2, when you had that storyline that took place during the sequel trilogy, and then you never saw it really come back ever again. So it was like,
and the other thing is like, here's the thing. I don't think this whole interconnected universe he's playing is going to work, because already people are complaining about the MCU having too much stuff to do. That's why I think he's biting off too much than he can chew. That's the other problem with this universe, is that he's put in too much. You don't want to give the audience homework.
And that's the thing too, is that, realistically, okay, now Aquaman, The Lost Kingdom, the trailer I thought actually looked really good.
It looked dope.
Like I was like, wow, this is surprising how good this looks. But I mean, to be honest, anybody can make a really good trailer. Look at the Flash;
true.
They had good trailers. We went and saw it. It was like, oh, but I mean,
enjoyed it.
I enjoyed it. It's a fun movie, but it has its flaws. And at the end, the ending, the ending was, I'm sorry, but like the ending, James Gunn fucked the ending.
What they should have done is put in the ending where like Godot and Cavill are there, and you could have had Cavill meet his cousin and all that. And I'm just leave it at that.
Leave it at that. But, and this is something that Dawson had mentioned, is that I really think that they should have had a scene where he essentially creates a new Flashpoint, and then he takes off, and it fades to white, and that's the end of the movie. Like basically, like next time you see these characters, it'll be the DCU.
Kind of.
The problem
like
is that you got fucking Aquaman coming out.
Yeah,
it's like, damn it.
That's why I think when they reorganize a DC film slate, they should have switched Aquaman and Flash, so Flash is the last one coming out. If this is going to be a reboot movie,
right? But at one point they did, and that's why they had the Keaton Batman scene, and then they shot the Affleck Batman scene for that movie, because at one point it was going to come out before the Flash, and so they're like, hey, well, we need to correct that Batman scene so it fits continuity. And then I think probably due to special effects and the changes they wanted to make to the story, they had to move it back after the Flash, and that fucked everything up. Because really, like, really they should have pushed Blue Beetle to next year, and that would have been your first like DCU movie. And really, it should be Superman Legacy, but you see what I'm saying? Like they should have pushed it off to next year, and that would have been the first movie that was in the DCU, because it was already made. Halsey Corbin writes, he should have run into a white void once he saw Clooney to correct. Exactly.
Like, no,
he should have been like, get me the fuck out of here. I'm done. I'm out. Guys, remember to smash the like button and subscribe to the channel. And consider becoming a member of the channel, or join us on Patreon to support the channel. I really appreciate that, guys. But no, I mean, like, he should have had a scene where he establishes that, like, yeah, I'm sending a new continuity, and here we go. But they didn't do that. That's what we said
the Flash was gonna do. So like, oh, he probably changed his mind again.
I don't know. I think, and this is my worry, concern, I guess, when it comes to Aquaman, is that I think when he looked at all these movies, he thought, okay, well, the Flash needs, like, he wanted the Flash to end on a dead end. He didn't want it to lead to anything else. And that was the problem, is that it should have been the movie that resets the DCU. And he didn't do that. Instead, he ended it with George Clooney, and it was like, uh-oh, and then it's over. It's kind of like, oh, that's it?
Well, then you also had the stupid post-credit scene with Aquaman falling into a lake or something like that.
But what was the point of that scene? I don't get it. It didn't serve a point. It was just for fun. That's all it was.
Well, it did. The dialogue is interesting because Barry did mention, Barry implied that after the Clooney scene, he traveled through all these, he traveled the multiverse again and visited all these planets where you have like different Batmen.
But still, I mean, it doesn't establish much of anything. It was just kind of like, oh, cool. All right. That was
Which
cute.
tells me Warner
Now
Brothers
what?
is still the same.
Yeah, no, it really is. It's just bad. Bad writing, bad planning, and hopefully it gets better, but we'll have to wait and see how that turns out, because I mean, so far everything they've done so far is just, ever since BVS, nothing has gone right for DC, and who knows if it ever will.
Kind of.
Yeah, but still, that was still early on when they were still able to kind of help themselves, and you know, now
well, it's because also afterwards they started making movies about a bunch of D-listers instead of Superman, because they should have done a Superman movie afterwards.
Yeah, they should have, but they didn't do that. Instead, they fucked it all up.
Because it's Warner Brothers.
That's it. Guys, that's all the time we have for tonight. I want to thank Jared for coming on the show. Jared, thank you so much for coming on here. We'll have to do this again really soon, man.
Absolutely. I had fun.
And this is one of the things I know some of the viewers were like, oh, we're talking about the Snyderverse. But, I mean, when I bring Jared on here, that's what we're going to talk about. I was like, dude, I'm going to talk about this at length. You know, and it just sucks what ended up happening with the DCEU. It could have been really cool, but Zack Snyder's Justice League would have been like the pivotal point where
you want to make $1 billion. That would have made $1 billion.
That would have been it. That would have been it right there. I worry that Jason Momoa is playing himself instead of the character. Yeah, pretty much.
A little bit. I will say, though, in Fast X, he basically convinced me that he could play a good Lobo.
And that's the thing, too, is that he might be playing Lobo for all we know, which would be really cool. That'd be perfect casting again. But we'll see how that goes. Jared, where can they find you and all of your content?
You can find me on Twitter at Comics League JT. You can find me on YouTube at Comics League. Find me on Spotify at Under Two Capes, where I talk about various comic book topics, Snyderverse topics, Superman, Wonder Woman topics, and any sort of content that you guys recommend. We just got the channel memberships up, so we got those rolling. And basically just continuing to pump stuff out on those avenues.
Yeah, and Jared, you go live like multiple times a week,
practically every day.
Yeah, practically every day, and you know, I probably would be doing it almost every day too, but with life, family, kids, it's a lot. But no, it's awesome that you're doing that. It's awesome that, and I'll say it's awesome that your channel's been monetized now, and that's a huge goal and a huge milestone. So congratulations, man! Totally.
Thank you.
Guys, remember to smash the like button, subscribe to the channel, hit that bell notification button so you're always notified of any new content the channel puts out. Follow us on Spotify and on YouTube Music under YouTube Podcasts, and follow the Nicotina Show. Check out my other channel called Beyond the Unknown, dedicated to UFOs, unsolved mysteries, and paranormal. I've got a couple videos up right now, and I'm working on a third one as well. So definitely check that out. And if you want to support the channel, which supports both, actually, join us on Patreon or become a member of the channel by hitting that link right down below. And I really do appreciate it, guys. Jared, thank you so much for coming on. I appreciate it.
Anytime.
And we'll have to do it again.
Alrighty.
All right. We'll see you guys next time. Peace.